April 29th, 1865. The President has been dead for 14 days. His funeral train has stopped in Columbus, Ohio, to allow the people to mourn their beloved leader. To honor his visit, Nicholas Hartzell was assigned to fire a cannon from the top of Shot Tower. Little did the man know, his commanding officer had rigged the cannon to explode. You see, Nick had a crush on the beautiful daughter of that same commander, and his commander was determined to make sure Nick never laid a finger on his precious girl. Nicholas Hartzell stands watch at the top of Shot Tower to this day. But you see, he isn't alone. There's dozens of ghosts wandering the grounds and halls of their former recruitment center. Some are reliving their deaths, some are still on watch, waiting to be relieved, and some, well, if you're sitting in the cafeteria eating lunch and the man next to you disappears before he finishes his meal, you might be at Fort Hays. Welcome to A&A's Tall Tales. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Andrea.
And the tale for today is Fort Hays in Columbus, Ohio. So that intro was the legend of Nicholas Hartzell. That is the legend that comes with Fort Hays. There are several other ghosts, but that is the main legend. It was built on 77 acres and sits just off the heart of downtown Columbus. First completed in 1864. The first building completed was Building 62, also known as Shot Tower. In 1922, it received its name in honor of the Governor Rutherford B. Hayes. The fort dealt with ammo transportation and storage, and then it became an intake recruiting center, and eventually was sold to the Columbus Public School System and is now a school for sciences and college prep and fine arts.
There's so much history in that period of time.
Yep. You go to high school there, just surrounded by all that history, and ghost sightings are part of every day for those kids. It's like, oh, sitting in class, well, here comes the nurse running to treat her patient, because the old hospital is classrooms now.
And when I was reading, it looked like the old hospital building is actually the music building now.
Oh.
You sit in there and go through your music class, and there's been reports of screams and of injured men, dying men, footsteps, banging of locker doors.
Oh, the locker doors are a fun one. They just open and close on their own.
Yeah, high school's not the easiest period of time anyway, of life. I can just imagine adding ghosts on top of it.
I need to know if these ghosts tattletale on students if the students misbehave.
Or play pranks on the students that misbehave, or help them get away with misbehaving.
I feel like that needs to be a buddy cop kind of reality TV show thing.
And if it wasn't so weird just to ask random students that went to school there, hey, so what's it like going to a haunted high school? I imagine that could be a pretty entertaining interview.
And I'm sure the stories they would be able to tell us about, like you were saying, footsteps and voices and screams and lockers and seeing ghosts appear out of nowhere and then disappear.
So, at the height of Fort Hays, which has also been known as the Columbus Arsenal, it had, from what I found research wise, it had over 100 structures on 77 acres. That's an enormous span. That's a lot of land.
It's a lot of land and a lot of buildings. A lot of people. My research showed that in its heyday, 2,000 people lived on the grounds. That's including officers and recruits and nurses. So
you're talking almost a town.
yeah, just about.
That in and of itself is incredible. So when it was converted to a high school, so from the Civil War era in 1860s to 1979, was it? 1976.
1976 was when it was sold.
Okay. So from 1864, 1865 to 1976, it was solely military. And
Yes.
it supplied ammunition and trained soldiers for the entire region. I'm imagining that at some point there was quite some activity going on as far as battle injuries, war injuries, maybe even some action as far as battles and such.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Fort Hayes ever saw like any war. I think they were just a recruitment center, but you have a bunch of young, dumb guys who don't know much about guns and cannons playing with guns and cannons.
Yeah, so the biggest ghost that we found was Nicholas Hartzell, correct?
Correct.
And he apparently should not have had a crush on the commander's daughter.
Well, that's the interesting thing, is doing the research that I was doing, came across something that kind of blew my mind. Nicholas Hartzell does not exist.
What?
His name is Nicholas Kaetzel, Kaetzel, and he did not die on April 29th, 1865. He died on April 5th, 1865.
So way before the funeral train came through.
Like a week and a half before the funeral train came through.
Wow.
So the deal with him is he was a civilian employee, and on April 5th, which was during the Civil War, the North captured Richmond, Virginia. They were told to celebrate by discharging a cannon, and Nicholas Kaetzel was the only person around who was even semi-qualified to do that. So he went and he did that, and the cannon just prematurely discharged.
Wow. That's
At that point, you think, well, what about the daughter and the commanding officer and all that stuff? Well, no. One, he was married to a woman named Margaret, and two, he was 51.
so the only truth to that is it was a cannon misfire and his name was Nicholas.
And the year was correct as well.
I mean, it was in the same general vicinity of that
Yeah,
time period, that what the legend says now, but wow, talk about a game of telephone.
yeah, just a little bit. Doing a little bit of extra digging, turns out that his wife did receive an $8 pension a month for his death.
That's not very much.
Not really.
Even in that era, the what the monetary value was then compared to now, that's not much to live on.
Let's look up and see. So this is 1860s. So it says about 1 to 33. So a dollar back then is about $33 today. So if you're talking $8 a month, that's about $264 a month, which is not great for the death of your husband.
Yeah, especially if he wasn't even a soldier. He was a civilian employee.
Yep. Which is, I think, like the only reason she got that pension, because I don't think she would have gotten that if he had been a soldier.
Wow.
And the both of them are buried at Greenlawn Cemetery, which is a place that we may cover at some point because, ooh, the story's there.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. But
I
spoilers.
haven't gotten that far in looking at things. So, all right.
So that is the main tale of Nicholas Catesell, not Nicholas Hartzell. It was a really interesting find, and when I was googling Nicholas Hartzell, there weren't a whole heck of a lot of hits.
How did you come across his actual name?
It was just in an article that I came across. It was just like, oh, Nicholas Catesell is often identified as Nicholas Hartzell. I don't know where the name discrepancy came from. I couldn't find anything on that. But from what I know about researching things, as little as I know about researching things, name discrepancies like that come from a misprint in a newspaper. It's as simple as that.
Right. That's as simple as a clerical error. Even some smudged ink obviously predates internet and easily mass-produced documentation. So,
Yeah.
wow.
It's supposedly still him who stands atop of Shot Tower.
That was my next question.
Yeah. So it's still supposedly him, whether it's Catesell or Hartzell, I'm using the quotation marks with that, that is supposed to be standing up there. This is big to differ, but someone stands watch up there and it's attributed to him.
Well, here's the other wild thing from, and maybe it was just my imagination that went this direction and it wasn't actually a factual thing that I read. I was under the impression for some reason, and I may have done it to myself, it wouldn't be the first time. I was under the impression that the man that is reported to be seen at the top of Shot Tower was more along the lines of a 18 to early 20s. And so hearing that he was in his 50s and most likely not in military uniform if he wasn't part of the military makes me wonder who exactly they're seeing and reporting seeing standing at the top of this tower in military uniform in their early 20s.
Well, so that's my question too, is it's reported that there are like tons of deaths at this hospital, but no specific names, which is where I've been getting frustrated. Is, oh yeah, here's this
Mm,
thing. Okay, well, I want to research it. And then there's no evidence I can find to back it up. Because, yeah, we can go on like the historical Columbus Dispatch, but are they really going to have everything? And who's going to read through hundreds of newspapers to catch every single little detail and look through it to look for that
yeah.
stuff? Like that's a lot of work, and I love you. This is our first podcast. I'm so excited, but I'm not putting that kind of work into it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm sitting here, my mind is working 1,000 miles an hour right now. There has to be some sort of historical society somewhere that has a list of medical, I don't want to say medical records necessarily, but at least recorded deaths. There has to be.
Well, so actually on the school's website, because it's a school now, they did have a list of people who served at
Mm,
Fort Hayes back in the day. And it
okay.
was several pages long of just 3 columns of names per page. But none of them said, oh, they're dead, they're alive. They just said they were here at some point. We want to talk to the families, get some recognition, make sure, everybody's accounted for, basically. Because they did a whole memorial thing. They planted, I want to say it was poppies, but it was probably roses, um, with all the names. So it was actually really cool. It was an art installment.
Wow. I mean, poppies are typically what is used as a memorial for soldiers. That's why with Veterans Day, it's that's the flower, is poppy. So that makes sense.
That's the only thing I could find as far as names of people.
Now I'm just curious. I wonder if there's even just locally in Columbus there some sort of museum. If there's an army museum somewhere that has the lists of names and dates. That would be interesting.
I feel like they would have those records, but I don't know if they would have them or if the state house would have them or if the library would have them.
Hmm.
But someone has to have them. They have to be somewhere. I can't imagine
Right.
they're just gone.
No, I would imagine not. But I mean, anyway, so they're total squirrel there. Um, there's plenty of people that this young man could be that have been reported to be seen, because the shot tower is also the building where students and staff refuse to go to the top floor if
Yeah,
if the
so
reports are true.
there's not a whole lot that I could find on Shot Tower specifically because it is currently an art gallery. So, yeah, just think about that for a second. It's an art gallery, which is so cool, and we have to go visit.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's a public art gallery. I found a lot on who's been featured here recently as far as artists and everything. And it even looked like a few years ago they held the state high school art show there.
Yeah. When you Google Shot Tower, you get all art gallery stuff. But what you don't get is, oh, what's the layout like? So the Shot Tower building or the tower itself isn't a tower out in the middle of a field. It's actually like front and center, smack dab right in the middle of a 3-story building.
Which surprised me when I saw the pictures. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie, that did surprise me.
Yeah. So it's probably 5 stories. It's hard to tell, but it's probably 5, 6 stories tall. I can't find any information about how tall it actually is. The one thing I did find was that there are multiple levels to the tower. So there's like the main staircase, but then every platform up a level has like a floor to it. And so the students and faculty and stuff will go into the tower, but they won't actually climb the stairs to the top. They refuse to go to the top.
I mean, that's fair. One, it's I would guess it's at least 5 stories, if not six. And two, maybe the name is misleading, but it feels like it's had a lot of activity there.
Yeah, so the one major report I found at Shot Tower, other than the normal stuff, was seeing people jump from the top of the tower and then fall and then disappear before they hit the bottom,
Whew.
which would unnerve me and deter me from going to said tower. So I don't
Yeah.
blame them.
Especially since the photos and everything of this building, it is a very square, strict red brick building. It looks very military. It's also surrounded with a tree-lined walkway coming up to the front of it. I'm not sure where it is as far as relation to the classroom buildings or if there are classes that are held there other than just the art gallery. It would be awfully spooky without seeing somebody jump from the top of the tower in an early morning that's kind of misty and quiet as a piece of property that large can
Yeah.
be. It would definitely give me some pause.
Yeah, just a little bit. And then the other thing I was researching on Shot Tower was that it's a common misconception, and I'm not quite sure where it started or when. So, this was the original building that was built back in 1864. I question that, and we'll get back to that.
Mm.
It was called Building 62, and they renamed it Shot Tower. I'm not sure when that name change took place or why, but supposedly it was used to create shot. So, like bullets and stuff, which is how they do that, which I found interesting, is they would take molten lead from the top of a tower and they would just drip it through a funnel and then they'd have a giant pool, like vat of water at the bottom that would insta cool the lead, and it would just form perfect pellets.
Hmm.
The problem is that shot tower isn't high enough. It's a minimum of 75 feet in order to produce shot, and I don't think shot tower is that tall. I don't know how tall it is, but I don't think it's that tall.
I mean, maybe from the roof it would be.
Maybe, maybe from the
Maybe.
roof, but I'm not standing on that roof. That's a peaked roof. That's very dangerous.
I mean, it stands to reason that maybe at some point throughout the history of the campus, because it was called the Columbus Arsenal for quite a while, or it's still until the military installation left in 2009 completely. It was known by the Columbus Arsenal. So I did find in my reading that it stored absolutely amazing amount of ammunition, arms, and men. Possibly at some point it was used for that, even if it was just for a short period of time.
Oh, yeah, I think that the one thing I came across said it was a clock tower at one point, but I think it was also used to store ammunition. And the height was just for ventilation and drafting and wind air technology that I don't understand. So,
Hey, who knows? That makes sense. It's just kind of strange that they would name the first building that was built there Building 62.
yeah, I don't know. So back to that asterisk, that question mark I was talking about when I said 1864 was the buildings could have been built from my research. No one could agree. It was anywhere from like 1862 to 1865. So I have no idea when the building was actually built.
I was able to find, I don't want to say a blueprint, but a an outline of the original proposal that was given to Congress on the budget for Fort Hayes. It was actually given to Congress in 1860. From what I found, they began building the original dozen or so buildings in 1861. They selected the site, went through the congressional authorization, and began building. I'm not sure if the 1860, 1861 number is from the very beginning when they drafted everything and then they began building in 1864. The original proposal for Congress was for a 2-story brick wood shop, 4 storehouses, barracks and EM quarters, a blacksmith shop, a stable and laboratory, which apparently was in the same building from the look of it, an office building, 1 story, officers' quarters, 2 stories, a guardhouse and brick wall, a railroad switch, landscaping, and inflation. So none of the buildings that were originally listed in the proposal to Congress for a budget were over 2 stories. They were all brick, and the total budget was $224,000 and some change.
Okay, I'm going back to my calculator.
It's
It said $224,000. We're going to times that.
224 and 75.
For those who can't do quick math, that is, in today's money, $7,392,000. Not cheap.
Not cheap, but that also seems a little ambitious for all brick buildings and a brick wall.
Yeah?
But I believe they sourced everything from Ohio, all of the building, Ohio and surrounding states,
Yeah,
all the
so
building materials.
know for sure that they did. The bricks were from Columbus, and then they had a couple other things from like areas around Columbus as well, as far as timber and limestone, right?
Yes, they did. The foundation material came from Newark, Ohio. The brick was fired in Columbus. Flooring and timber was obtained in southern Ohio. The copper and cast iron cornices were manufactured in Cincinnati. That was on the storehouse building, which is the principal facility of the post. Even back then, the flooring, which it looks like they used ash wood for the most of it, cost $25 per 1,000 feet. So not per square foot, per 1,000 feet.
Wow.
Yeah. It's kind of incredible. It looks like the majority of these buildings were finished in 1864. And the first building was known as Building 62. That is so weird. Why would you call a building 1 Building 62?
Because they have to be complicated. I don't know.
The other incredible thing with this fort and these buildings, we were talking about some of the amount of I almost said product of ammunition and everything that was stored here is just mind-boggling.
Give me numbers.
As the buildings were being built, and the main arsenal building was completed in 1865. Long before that, the post was receiving, storing, and issuing arms and recruitments in large amounts, as in 10,000 sets. 10,000 sets of equipage. Not 100% sure what equipage is. 5,000 Enfield rifles to arm 3 months of enlistees. The post had enough arms stored in a temporary warehouse to arm and equip 30,000 men. That's a lot.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of
30,000 men.
ammo and guns and holy cow,
And
I don't want
from
to be in charge of that.
Right? So from its holding just in that month, in May of 1864, the Columbus Arsenal shipped to other arsenals 2 million rounds of elongated ball cartridges, 400 percussion artillery shells, and 600 shells for 3-inch guns. So
Wow.
that's in 1864 in May. They didn't even have their main building, their main warehouse completed at that point.
Yeah. So this was a huge ammo transportation and storage depot, which it
Yes.
was also a recruitment center. What I found was selected, disposable, unexamined, and colored recruits. I don't know what they mean by selected and disposable, but I feel like those are not things I want to be called by the Army.
That brings to mind the Steve Rogers moment in Captain America before
Yeah,
he was Captain America, you know?
yeah.
Like they kept turning him away and decided they were going to just experiment on him.
But yeah, and then you think this was one of the more major areas because we were close to Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. So we had people coming in from all over to.
That's one thing that my brother pointed out to me at one point here recently. Columbus, Ohio is within 500 or 600 miles of almost every large city on the eastern side of the United States. So that's pretty incredible. That's an easy train ride to
Yeah,
get to wherever. Fort Hays was the center of the region as far as supplying everything. Once they had all the buildings put up, at the end of 1865, the magazine at the post was filled to capacity. The building's basement was authorized for storage of ammunition, and they put the first live rounds in that building in 1865 at the end of November. 4 million cartridges in the basement that winter.
I feel like
10,000 new Spencer carbines were stored in the upper floors. The buildings were so crowded that the first public auction of military stores was authorized and held in 1865 from the Columbus Arsenal. So in
wow.
early 1866, the artillery was stored in large numbers of pieces. They transferred that from Newport, Kentucky, and to Columbus. It was a very cluttered space. And I mean, 4 million cartridges in a single basement.
Yeah, that wasn't designed for ammunition storage. Like if you're gonna store ammunition unsafely somewhere, store it in a basement, I guess. But like, makes me kind of nervous.
I don't know. I mean, it was in the magazine at the Post, so that it was a building built specifically for storage of armaments. So hopefully it was, I mean, it still stands. It's not like they
It
did
didn't
something
disintegrate.
wrong there. Yeah. And so that's the other thing that's kind of, as we're reading through all of this and we're learning about this, it was built in 1865. It it didn't really become a recruiting center until 1875. So for basic the first decade of its existence, they were moving a lot of ammunition in and out. A lot of ammunition
Yeah.
and weaponry in and out. That's just, and then I had read somewhere that they didn't get electricity or anything on this post until 1908.
I feel like that's awfully late.
That's a long time with with no electricity and storing all sorts of
Especially,
live rounds in the basement.
well, I guess at that point it was, what, 40 years old, so it wasn't newer. But
Hmm.
I feel like that could have happened sooner.
Yeah, that's, I don't know, maybe it wasn't safe to run wires and things through until it was a little bit more refined.
Until there wasn't 4 million cases of ammo just sitting around with no place to go.
Right. Not just ammo, but live cartridges.
Yeah.
That's incredible. That is just, it's incredible. So I can just imagine with it having a hospital building, with it having the mess hall is now the science building
Mm-hmm.
for a high school.
Yep.
Like,
And that was going to
and
be my point, was all this incredible history, and it's been a high school since the well, the majority of it has been a high school since 1976.
right. And the last military installation came out, left the fort in 2009.
Yeah. We had just graduated high school.
Right. But for the last 12 years, it has been nothing but a college preparatory and fine arts high school.
Which is amazing, I think. It's such a cool
I do
use of
too.
space.
I can just imagine though. I mean, sitting in one of your classes and or walking into one of your classrooms and just, hey, you can't eat lunch at my desk today. We have a chemistry something going on. So you're going to have to let me
Yeah.
sit here.
Like kicking a poor Civil War soldier out of his lunch because you have to light a Bunsen burner. Uh,
Oh my goodness. These lockers slamming and stuff. That seems to be one of the biggest, other than footsteps. It seems to be one of the biggest, most often reported things is locker doors opening and closing, locks being popped open.
just gotta think that
Maybe
the
they're
ghosts
just
are like
curious.
fiddling with them, just being bored.
I know. I know. I maybe it was just my high school, but I think combination locks are pretty universal. Um, we used to leave our lockers kind of rigged, to where you could just come through pretty quickly and just jiggle the latch right and open your locker to in between classes if you had to get from one side of campus to the other. So it makes me wonder some if these sightings and things are actual people just standing there and it these doors open and with nobody around, or if kids on their way to the bathroom are popping doors open, or if they're coming in to school in the morning with nobody having been there overnight and their doors are open. Um, or even if they've rigged their doors to kind of be open quickly and now they have to put in the combination again.
Well, see, now here's the thing: is now I need to go investigate because I have to debunk this.
And, all these high schools now have video cameras everywhere. It would be kind of interesting if they ever catch anything on video.
I don't think anybody's ever going to look through the entire history of video, but I feel like I would do that just to
I don't know.
look
I
and
feel like,
see.
yeah, I feel like it would be, especially if a claim was made and got back to whomever would be in charge of the video camera equipment. Just sheer curiosity. I would have to go look,
Because I feel
but
like it could easily be like, oh, they haven't replaced the lockers since, 1976. So they're old lockers. They're warped. They don't latch the way they're supposed to. If you don't latch them correctly, they'll just swing open.
hmm.
But I also really want 1900s, early 1900s ghosts to be messing with people's lockers. This is something I need in my life for some reason.
Hey, I'm just saying because my dad was the principal at my high school, the disciplinarian principal at my high school,
Oh, poor
and he
you.
had all of the right. Yeah, my parents totally chaperoned prom and homecoming every year.
Ugh.
Um, but my dad had the video equipment, the security equipment, and footage in his office. I don't know how it differs being in a high school in Columbus versus a small school in Lexington. I would have to go look. I would have to look back at, and you can speed through that footage pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So,
Especially if all you're looking for is a door opening, it'd be pretty easy to
right.
see it's closed. Oh, well, now it's open.
But I have a feeling we'll never know unless we get a chance to go snoop, which there are tours offered through
There
Fort
are tours
Hayes.
offered.
It's on columbuscityadventures.com. So I had originally thought that it was just certain times of the year, maybe around Halloween, that they did like fundraisers by doing haunted tours through the school. I kind of forgot that there's no way they have classes in 100 plus buildings on this campus, and they do tours all year round and not necessarily just in the campus, in the school buildings, or not even in the school buildings. So
Yeah, because I know they
that would be
have
cool.
barracks that I don't think are occupied currently. So there are a couple dozen buildings I think left standing, and not all of them are school buildings.
So I'm actually looking at the calendar here of things that are offered, and it looks like the month of December, Fridays and Saturdays, they're doing holiday light tours. And I was going to try to see if they did anything over Halloween, but I can't go back.
Oh no.
And the Shot Tower Art Gallery is public.
Yes.
And I believe it was open from 8 to 4.
Yep, 8 to 4, Monday through Friday. So if you're in the area at any point in time and want to get some ghosts and some history and some art culture, Fort Hayes is surprisingly your best bet for a one-stop shop.
You can't beat that. That is fantastic. And it is right in downtown Ohio.
It's right downtown. It's easy access from the highway. I drove past it every morning on my way to Columbus State.
If anybody has experiences at Fort Hayes,
Please email
students that have
us.
been to Fort Hayes,
Please email us.
pretty please,
Pretty big, please.
since we did a thing
We
and
did a
we have an
thing.
email.
We have an email. It's kind of official. Our email is the letters A-N as in Nancy, A, so like A&A, and then tall tales at gmail.com.
So please, we would love to hear your stories, and not just about Fort Hayes.
Nope.
Anything unusual, spooky, urban legend, all of it.
Any little
Let us
known
know.
tales you have from your tiny little neck of the woods or your big city neck of the woods, let us know and we'll look into it.
Most definitely, because we would love to hear any well-known tales. We would love to hear tales that might be just a local flavor. Our next episode, I will be covering a local legend that I grew up hearing, like most people hear about Bigfoot, and just found out recently that it is not well known to everybody.
It is not. I had no idea what you were talking about when you proposed it, and I had to do my own research, and now we're going to talk about it. But not now. Now. Next time. Now. So, and if you want to like and rate and let us know what we did great, what we didn't do. Once again, our first podcast, so be kind, but constructive criticism is welcome.
And otherwise, until next time.
Until next time.
This has been A&A Tall Tales, an independently written, recorded, and produced podcast. Our intro sounds are Crackling Fireplace by Julius H. and Nightwoods by Widget Studios. Our intro song is Harmonica Solo by Julius H. This podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only.